IVM.
Hello one, hello all. Welcome to the Diary of the Traveling Professor. And I'm Siddharth Deshmukh, your friendly neighborhood traveling professor himself. Well, what do I have in store for you this week? It's about that time of year when people pitch me for ideas. Yeah, that's true. Not because I have a lot of money to throw around, but I happen to be part of a jury that judges ideas. At MICA, what we actually tend to do, MICA is the place that, is so close to my heart, where I teach, where I've post-graduated from and the rest of it. At MICA, a bunch of us are trying to make people a little more digitally savvy, have a project which allows them to pitch their ideas, work with those ideas for about 6 months, and then kind of showcase that idea along with its business model and plan and the rest of it at the end of those 6 months to a jury and actually get judged for it. Some people have been offered, some money to kickstart their ventures and so on and so forth. I hope that somebody does become successful, but it is more of a project which is part of a curriculum. So it ends up with people going to jobs at the end of their 2 years, but then pursuing either their venture or their adventure, I should say, maybe a couple of years later after they've paid off their student debt, which is a real thing. So anyway, this is the background to the thing that I wanted to speak to you about today. The fact is that most of them, and trust me, I probably have dealt with about 200 odd people so far over the last few years now. Most of them come up with an idea which ends up being completely unrecognizable 6 to 7 months later when they're presenting the same idea to a jury. What tends to happen is that it gets screwed over when it has first contact with the marketplace. As Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan till they're punched in the face. Absolutely. When people put their ideas out into the marketplace, they understand that their idea is mainly shitty, sometimes good, some parts are good, some parts are bad, but all of the ego just gets lost. Because the fact is that you have to kill your darlings. I mean, this is something that I had read about advertising ideas, but true for most business ventures as well. You have to kill your darlings very, very quickly when you're looking at trying to make a successful business. If you're looking at making a successful business, it is you looking at completely different factors than just your idea. I know all of us are enamored by the idea because, we're passionate about it. We want, it to work out and the rest of it. But we soon realize that it's hardly ever about the bloody idea. In fact, experts have said that the most important thing is timing. Sometimes your idea can be great, but your timing is shitty, and that's why it doesn't work. And so on and so forth. Some people say it's execution, the team. Some people say it's the amount of money you have. What I have come to realize about ideas is they're important, but they're not so important. I mean, the end-to-end execution, of course, matters. And most ideas pivot. There are very few ideas that stick to their original plan or their original vision. And I'd like to talk about, let's say, 2 really famous examples. One is Amazon, wherein Jeff Bezos, if you see an early interview of Jeff Bezos, knew exactly what he was doing. He wanted to enter with books, then move on to other sectors and so on and so forth. And probably one of the few entrepreneurs who is an exception to this rule. But if you look at Facebook and what Mark Zuckerberg thought that he was doing, again, see an early interview and you'll know what I'm talking about. He wanted to build a college directory. And today where Facebook is, especially with its acquisition of, various things like Oculus Rift and WhatsApp and Instagram, you will know that it has gone and pivoted a lot of times. Most of the times, most ideas pivot until they find something called product market fit. My view is that is inevitable for most ideas. So what an idea, Sergi, that ad that we perhaps remember of one of the mobile operators is good, but not all that good too. I think from my perspective and from all of the experience that I've got doing this, okay, you need to figure out 2 or 3 things really besides your idea. You have to look at the opportunity. You have to look at the potential marketplace. You have to look at, how many people are, going to be customers, and what is the timing of that opportunity as well. Extremely important. It's no point in looking at overall market size when your immediately addressable market size is minuscule or maybe just not ready to buy your product or service or platform. You have to also look at whether you are going to be sustainably interested in following this. I mean, you might have an idea every day. I've seen so many creators who have an idea every day, and actually, funnily enough, they lose steam. They lose steam after a couple of months. And so therefore, you need to have an idea that you're invested in today and can remain invested in for a long period of time. And not all ideas are worth it. I mean, there has to be an aha factor, something that just clicks, something that is, funnily enough, beyond the idea. The third thing I'd say is leverage. I know we keep banging on about nepotism, but hey, have you got a rich uncle who can help you get a leg up? Well, that's leverage. Now, leverage can be, good plain old nepotism, but beyond that, leverage can be your skills. Leverage can be the money that you have in the bank. Leverage can be a partner who really understands how to code. So many different things. So if you look at opportunity, if you look at sustainable interest, and if you look at leverage, then you have the ability to develop your idea and pivot it to make sure that it succeeds in the marketplace with the right business model. Now, it might seem unsexy, it might seem unglamorous, but to be honest, you have to put your idea in the kill zone. Make sure that you kill your darling before the world kills it and move on. Because I think the most important thing to realize, and most entrepreneurs do not understand it because they look at their idea as an extension of themselves, but you are not your idea. Your idea is a facet of yours which has to prove itself to you in order to become an extension of you. On that happy note, I would leave you to your ideas, and I hope that some of you do become entrepreneurs and make them successful. And if you do, well, then write me your success stories and I'll happily talk about them on this podcast of mine. If you like the funny side of the professor, please rush to Instagram. I've talked about dealing with fools over there, right? Do see that one, and also my funny take on LinkedIn. And if you like LinkedIn, I make a few serious posts over there, and I also publish my podcast from there. I think that there's also another thing that you might want to consider, which is something called Tell Me About It, which is now 15 episodes old, which is a YouTube thing wherein I call industry experts and just talk about it, right? Talk about a subject, talk about a topic, and just explore, some trends out there, some important trends. So you've got a lot of the professor. And if you're not a student of mine, there's no escape. There's no escape, my friends. Just kidding. Until next time then. If you love listening to podcasts like these, please download the IVM Podcast app or just go to ivmpodcast.com. Bye-bye now.
I hope you enjoyed that show. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money. Some really fun guests on the network this week. Cyrus welcomed Dia Mirza to come and have a conversation about all kinds of different things. Danny Morrison was on Edges and Sledges, the cricket podcast. If you haven't heard that, that's always a fun listen. And Raul Subramanian was on Football Should Fall to grow their ever more exciting list of guests. And it's not just that. Mantra Mugdha, old friend of ours, was on Advertising is Dead. Manu Pillai was on the Filter Coffee podcast. It's been one great guest after the other. And with that, we hope to catch you again next week.
Do you have a night routine? Well, everyone has one. And the to-do list usually looks like this. Brush your teeth, set that alarm, get into your pajamas, and switch off those screens. But here's one more to add to that list. Tune into the Positively Unlimited podcast for a dose of positive action and tips on how to build powerful mindsets. Episodes out every Monday on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you tune into podcasts.